Y News. The Department of Agriculture begins implementing suggested retail prices of select agricultural products. The National Bureau of Investigation arrests 3 Bureau of Internal Revenue personnel over extortion claims. And pump prices set to go down by 1 peso per liter this week. Y News begins now.
From the UNTV News and Rescue Command Center in Quezon City, this is Y News.
Good evening. The Department of Agriculture warns retailers against imposing higher than ceiling prices as it begins implementing suggested retail prices of select agricultural products today. Ray Pelayo tells us why.
The Department of Agriculture imposes on Monday the suggested retail prices for rice and other agricultural products in local markets in Metro Manila. DA sets 39 pesos per kilogram SRP for regular milled rice, 150 pesos for a kilogram of milk fish, 100 pesos for tilapia, and 140 for galunggong. The SRP also includes garlic at 70 pesos for each kilogram, red onion at 95 pesos, and white onions at 75. With SRP in place, prices of goods may only go up by maximum of 10% from the suggested retail price.
Yung SRP, yan yung benchmark mo. Pwede kang bumaba, hindi ka pwedeng tumaas ng more than 10%. Kasi pag tumaas ka ng more than 10% over the SRP, prevailing SRP, you could be charged with profiteering. Ibig sabihin, nagsasamantala ka.
This means that a retailer may sell regular milled rice cheaper than 39 but not higher than 42.90 pesos given the 10% ceiling. Secretary Piñol also vows to look into the concerns of market vendors regarding the newly released SRP. These include fear of losing income as expressed by retailer Norma Santos after DA's SRP pegged local garlic at 120 pesos, which is way lower than its 300 pesos per kilogram market price.
Kasi kung bibigyan nila kami ng ganong presyo tapos mahal ang bili namin, dilugi kami.
We will check that, no? Because hindi naman ganun kataas sa farm gate.
DA will also enlist the help of the Department of Trade and Industry and the Interior and Local Government in monitoring the prices of said products. Piñol says those found violating the anti-profiteering law will be imprisoned of up to 6 years and be fined with up to 1 million pesos. Ray Pelayo, UNTV News and Rescue, Quezon City.
The National Bureau of Investigation nabs 3 personnel of the Bureau of Internal Revenue during an entrapment operation in Green Hills, San Juan. Nel Maribuhok tells us why.
The National Bureau of Investigation presents on Monday the 3 employees of the Bureau of Internal Revenue Regional Investigation Division in Makati who were arrested over extortion complaints. 3 arrested personnel were identified as Arturo Buñol, Gary Atanasio, and Edgardo Javier, designated as BIR Special Investigators. They were nabbed at an entrapment operation on June 21 in Green Hills, San Juan by the members of the NBI Special Task Force working with the Presidential Anti-Corruption Commission. The case stems from a report of a Chinese restaurant owner in Makati whom the 3 were allegedly demanding to pay 1.2 million pesos in supposed tax liability. The subjects allegedly asked the businessman to pay only 50% of the total amount or 600,000 pesos, offering to place 75,000 pesos in the tax declaration and the remaining balance will be given as bribe.
Bago mo utuso kasi ito, yung RID don't go directly to the clients, tapos tingin namin mga papel. So talagang nananakot lang mga ganun, scare tactics.
Kumpleto na kami ng ebidensya, kaya kung kayo ay hindi nyo sasabihin yung mastermind nyo, talagang pusoy kayo.
The officials note that the mission order being used by the 3 investigators for probing the restaurant, which had been operating for only a year, had already expired. The NBI is now probing their operation to determine their cohorts. They are also asking the public to report any similar extortion cases. The 3 suspects are now facing complaints for violating Anti-Graft and Corrupt Practices Act, Code of Conduct and Ethical Standards for Public Officials and Employees, and bribery under the revised Penal Code. Nel Maribuhok, UNTV News and Rescue, Manila.
Philippine Statistics Authority's data showed fewer Filipinos are getting married. Its figures also show a drop in church marriages. Mai Bermudez explains why.
Engaged couple attorney J.B. Hizon and Jody are set to tie the knot via church wedding next year after 2 years of courting.
You go that extra mile for that single day. Kasi I mean, it's just happened. Well, hopefully it happens once in your life lang. So, it's worth it naman.
But not all Filipinos choose to marry through religious rites or what is commonly called church marriage. In the latest data of the Philippine Statistics Authority or PSA, less than half of Filipinos, or over 41%, said they want to marry through civil rights. From 2007 to 2016, the number of Filipinos tying the knot dropped by more than 14%. However, PSA's report did not cite reasons for the decline. PSA figures also show that many Filipinos opt to marry through the months of April, February, and May instead of the traditional wedding month of June.
If you opt to have a civil marriage sa mga huwes, sa mga judges, hindi ka na mag-aanda. Karamihan hindi na nag-aanda na ingrande. Hindi katulad yung mga kasal sa simbahan.
Church weddings are normally costly with bridal gowns worth up to 25,000 pesos apart from having traditional receptions and wedding cakes.
Yung iba gusto nila rentals. Hindi nila alam na yung ibang rentals na 25,000, makakakuha pa sila ng mga wedding gowns na mas mababa pa sa 25 like us. So, na-customize. Oo.
Nagka-cut ka ng wedding cake, yung parang nag-share talaga kayo ng love. Yung parang ganon. So parang together talaga.
An expert says having a grandiose wedding is not important. It is better to have a simple one as long as it's carefully thought about.
Any marriage is worth fighting for. Kasi ang hirap maghiwalay. And you know, you cannot just decide on a whim or on an emotion that you want to separate, that you haven't tried everything you can.
Mai Bermudez, UNTV News and Rescue, Pasay City.
Palm prices are set to go down by 1 peso per liter this week. Let's find out why from Monoxol.
Oil companies are expected to implement a big-time rollback this week due to increased supply of oil from oil exporting countries. Industry players estimate prices of gasoline will go down by over 1 peso per liter, while prices of diesel will be slashed by 90 centavos per liter and almost 1 peso for kerosene. Last Friday, member countries of the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries agreed to add 1 million barrels more to their daily oil production. Oil exporting countries produce 21 million barrels per day worldwide.
Group is concerned on the overall rather than individually, and I think this is a quite achievement. You don't see this usually in organizations. Everyone is looking at his own interest. I think the fact that collectively this group have reached to this conclusion is a testimony that OPEC is caring about the markets.
In 2016, OPEC member countries reduced their daily production by 1.2 million barrels to balance the market. However, due to the limited production of several members, such as Libya and Venezuela, they failed to reach the target, which resulted in the increase on prices of petroleum products. Meanwhile, consumer groups continue to call for the investigation of alleged connivance in the pricing of petroleum in the country. The Philippine Competition Commission is still considering whether or not to launch a probe in relation to the consumer group's request. In July, public jeepney drivers will begin receiving fuel vouchers worth 5,000 pesos each. Mon Hokson, UNTV News and Rescue, Quezon City.
Power distributors are opposing proposals to abolish the Energy Regulatory Commission. Grace Cassian tells us why.
Lawmakers sidestepped during today's technical working group hearing. In the House of Representatives, the proposal of House Speaker Pantalon Alvarez seeking to abolish the Energy Regulatory Commission or ERC. They opted instead to strengthening the agency against corruption. This after the National Power Corporation, National Grid Corporation of the Philippines, National Electrification Administration, and even Department of Budget and Management expressed opposition on the matter.
We go for the independence of the Energy Regulatory Commission.
So in short, you are in favor of strengthening the ERC?
Yes.
Or okay?
To strengthen ERC.
But Laban Consumer Incorporated President Victor Mario Dimagiba says strengthening the agency will not solve the alleged corruption within its ranks.
Kasi yung use the word strengthen, ano yan sabihin nila yan, pareho lang yan. No? So if you want to get consumer understand what Congress wanted to do, I guess we should stick with the version of the Speaker, abolition of the ERC.
ERC Chairperson Agnes Nivanadera, meanwhile, says they will abide with the Congress decision on the issue. Grace Cassin, UNTV, News and Rescue, House of Representatives.
Transport Group Piston wants to create its own rehabilitated jeep that is compliant with the standards set by the Department of Transportation. However, the group worries the government won't approve its reconditioned and customized public utility jeepney. John Nano tells us why.
Stop and Go Coalition presented last week its prototype of a reconditioned and customized public utility jeepney on the program Get It Straight with Daniel Razon. On Monday, the Transport Group Piston announces it wants to follow suit. Piston President George San Mateo notes the Stop and Go's prototype proves old jeepney models can be rehabilitated and that there is no need to buy a new and expensive one. But San Mateo worries his group might only waste money as there is no assurance the government will approve its rehabilitated jeepney.
Ba't kami magre-rehabilitate kung hindi naman papasa sa pamantayan ng OFG? Bakit? Kasi gusto brand new. Ang pamantayan ang gusto ng gobyerno, negosyo.
LTFRB board member Attorney Eileen Lizada admits the government wants to replace old models of public utility vehicles. Lizada explains doing so would help prevent accidents on roads involving old or rehabilitated PUVs.
Based sa guidance ng Department of Transportation, brand new vehicles ang ating gagamitin sa omnibus franchising guidelines. Marami na kasi hong taon na yung mga rehabilitated buses, mga rehabilitated vehicles po. Yun ho yung marami tayong road crashes. Ayaw na ho natin ng mga aksidente.
The LTFRB also denies Piston's allegations that the government seeks to gain profit from its PUV modernization program. The agency notes the program will create more jobs, especially in the local car manufacturing sector that would produce modern jeepneys. Piston held another protest earlier in front of the office of the LTFRB against the jeepney modernization as well as in Bicol, but not all of its members participated.
Hindi kami sinabayan ng presidente namin kasi nakikomunikasyon man ng presidente namin. Kaya alam may mga pag-uusap na hindi pa napapalinaliwanagan.
Yung income namin, siyempre mababawasan. Saka yung kailangan ng mga bata, baon, mga ano. Mahina na yung kita eh. Tapos ano pa, sasali pa kami sa strike.
Amid the outcry, the DOTR says it will still push through with the modernization program under which 500 modern jeepney units will be launched in the State of the Nation address of President Duterte in July. Joan Nano, UNTV News and Rescue, Quezon City.
Show hosts showcase their singing, dancing, and acting talents in a music and theater show. Leslie Longboan explains why.
Parents were bursting with pride when their children unleashed their talents on stage during Musicala's Inspire musical and theater show on Sunday. The performers include UNTV's KNC show hosts who acted in a play entitled Browbeat, showcasing their talents in acting.
How do you see yourself 10 years from now?
I want to become a pilot or engineer, sir.
You don't need to do this. We could sort this out.
Because if I were to decide, I all want them to be expelled. What they did to my daughter is inexcusable.
Singing.
It's not a perfect world, no, not a perfect place.
My everyday won't be the same again.
And dancing.
Make no apologies, this is me, oh.
Apart from giving entertainment, the kids wanted to share a strong message through the play.
Bawal magsukong nabubuli dahil meron pa silang pag-asa.
The kids went through series of trainings to hone their skills prior to their performance.
Dun sa workshop po, natutunan ko po kung, siyempre first of all, kung paano umarte. Yung kasama dun yung pagbigkas ng bawat line. Tsaka yung relax lang po.
Pinapaiyak po kami sa workshop. Tapos po, minsan po pinapatawa naman po kami. Tapos pinapalabas po yung expression namin.
Gusto po talaga namin maka-inspire ng mga tao, especially the young ones who has a talent tapos nahihiya, natatakot.
Meanwhile, the kids were very thankful for the support of their parents, which helped them perform their best.
Malaking tulong po yun sa aming mga bata na nakaka-support po kayo, na nakaka-attend po kayo kasi nakaka-build po siya ng confidence.
And we will see tomorrow.
Leslie Longboan, UNTV News and Rescue, Manila.
Up next on Y News. The Office of the Ombudsman indicts former Transport Secretary Joseph Emilio Abaya and 16 others over the controversial 4.2 billion peso MRT maintenance deal. And the Senate bounces DOJ out of the off-season playoffs while Special Assistant to the President Christopher Bongo tries to lift Malacañang off the cups of elimination. And thank you for keeping me company in the first part of Y News. More reasons behind the stories with Angelo, Castro III and William Thio after this quick break. I'm Darlene Basingan. Good evening.
Welcome back to Y News. We pick up from where Darlene Basingan left off. I'm Angelo Castro III, and here are the headlines. President Rodrigo Duterte hits Catholic Church's doctrine on original sin. Lawmakers file resolution seeking to probe the death of Genesis Argoncillo and the police's crackdown on loiterers allegedly violating city ordinances. And the Department of Foreign Affairs hits back at Iceland and other countries that are criticizing the Philippines' human rights record. Good evening. President Rodrigo Duterte hits the Catholic Church's doctrine on original sin. Meanwhile, Malacañang appeals to the Catholic Church to investigate and apologize on the cases of abuse on male minors involving some priests. Rosalie Cos tells us why.
President Rodrigo Duterte takes another swipe at the Catholic Church by criticizing its doctrine of original sin. During the National Information and Communications Technology Summit in Davao City last Friday, the president minced no words lambasting the Catholic Church for its teachings.
Ikaw, maniwala ka ng nasabi ng Katoliko? So tayo ngayon, all of us are born with an original sin. Ang original sin, said, ano man yan? Was it the first kiss? O what was the sin? Bakit original? Nasa womb ka pa, may kasalanan ka na.
His statements drew flack from various personalities and even from netizens. Senator Panfilo Lacson said between the president and God, he does not have to think of his choice. Based on Catholic theology, infants are baptized to free them from the original sin they were born with. Meanwhile, original sin is one of the topics being asked to tele-evangelist Brother Eli Soriano. In a Bible exposition, he said that original sin is just an invented doctrine of Catholic priests.
Ang kauna-unahang kasalanan ginawa ng tao, yung kanyang pakinig, inalis niya sa Diyos, nakinig siya sa iba. Dapat kasi sa Diyos tayo makinig eh. Hindi kahit kanginong tao, kahit sa asawa mo, pag mali eh, huwag kang makikinig. Tanong ko sa iyo kapatid, pag ikaw ba bagong panganak, may original sin ka na? Unang-una nga, wala. Unang-una nga, pagkapanganak mo, wala ka namang asawa. Paano kang makakapakinig sa tinig ng asawa mo para magawa mo original sin? Yung original thing, invento yan.
Meanwhile, Malacañang appeals to the Catholic Church to investigate and ask for forgiveness on the abuses of some priests against male minors. This is where President Duterte's criticisms against Catholic Church are coming from. The chief executive previously revealed he was abused by a Catholic priest when he was a freshman in Ateneo de Davao University.
Panahon na po siguro na i-address natin itong issue na pagmumolestya ng mga batang lalaki sa simbahang Katolika. Siguro po kinailangan ng isang biktima ay maging presidente para ito po ay maisa publiko, mapag-usapan at magkaroon naman ng solusyon. Hinihingi po natin siguro na para hindi na maulit yung ganitong sentimento laban sa simbahang Katolika, magkaroon na po ng investigasyon, magkaroon na po ng pag-aamin kung talagang nangyari itong mga bagay nito, magkaroon ng transparency at magkaroon ng hakbang para maiwasan na po itong pagmumolestya sa mga batang kalalakihan.
Rosa Licoz, UNTV News and Rescue, Malacañang.
A lawmaker seeks to probe the death of detainee Genesis Argoncillo while under the custody of cops, and the police's crackdown on loiterers allegedly violating city ordinances. PNP Chief Oscar Albayalde, meanwhile, prohibits cops from using the term Oplan Tambay in their operations. Grace Casin explains why.
Senator Bam Aquino filed resolution in the Senate seeking to investigate the controversial death of detainee Genesis Tisoy Argoncillo while in the custody of police, while the Makabayan Bloc also plans to file their own resolution on Tisoy's death this week. Lawmakers want an explanation from the Philippine National Police about its basis in arresting Tisoy, who was just then allegedly buying cell phone load from a store. The Makabayan Bloc also wants an inquiry to PNP's arrest of street loiterers allegedly violating ordinances.
Merong mga violations of rights na ginawa. Basic rights po, right to remain silent, right to counsel.
Matagal na itong tinanggal, 2012 pa lang.
On the other hand, former PNP Chief and now Bureau of Corrections Director General Ronald De La Rosa sees nothing wrong with the PNP's move to arrest loiterers violating laws.
Kahit na hindi ka tambay, kung nag-violate ka ng certain ordinance, then you have to be arrested.
PNP Chief Albayalde meanwhile expressed dismay over the use of some cops of the term tambay in their operations. The general explains their targets are not loiterers but violators of ordinances. The PNP chief has already prohibited his men from using the term Oplan Tambay. He also orders police commanders to focus on police operations to prevent violations of rights.
Closely coordinate with the local government officials, or particularly sa mga barangay officials, no? Because they should be the ones taking the lead in this campaign against violators of local ordinances.
Grace Casin, UNTV News and Rescue, House of Representatives.
Former Health Secretary Janet Garin asks the Department of Justice to junk the complaint against her relating to the Dengvaxia controversy. Mai Bermudez tells us why.
Former Health Secretary Janet Garin refutes what she calls as baseless and malicious accusations over her alleged criminal liability in the inoculation of school children with the anti-dengue vaccine. In her counter-affidavit, Garin argued that the causality between the alleged recklessly imprudent acts and the material damage have not been established that would prove that there is a probable cause to indict her. Garin said there is no proof that there was any clinical diagnosis of the vaccine's effect on the internal organs and nerves. She also adds that during her stint as health chief, there was no available medical evidence that would indicate health risks associated with the vaccine. The issuance of license of the said vaccine was based on 2 large clinical trials in 5 countries in Asia, 5 in Latin America, participated by 41,000 subjects. She also insists that the DOH followed safety, efficiency, and cost-effectiveness guidelines during her term. Garin submitted her counter-affidavit as the DOJ resumes its preliminary investigation today into the alleged liabilities of former and incumbent officials over the controversial Dengvaxia vaccine. The former official is facing a complaint of reckless imprudence resulting in homicide and violation of the law against torture, filed by kin of children who allegedly died due to complications from being inoculated with Dengvaxia.
To date, the Public Attorney's Office, or PAO, has examined 64 bodies and filed 10 criminal complaints against Garin, former health officials, Sanofi Pasteur, and others who were involved in the anti-dengue drive.
Anong walang namamatay? Ang dami na nga namatay Pare-pareho Pare-pareho at ang mabigat ngayon, magsasampa po kami ng isang kaso, 2 beses na siyang na-dengue, nabuhay siya, nakaligtas, nang mabakunahan, pagkatapos pong mabakunahan, 7 araw namatay, si Noemi Minura.
Nasaan na ba ang mga konsensya, no? Mahal na Presidente, ang aksyon mo, hinihintay namin. Dahil ang mga kabataan, di ba, pag-asa ng bayan, naririnig ko yan sa patalastas.
The next hearings are scheduled on July 16 and 27, after which the DOJ is expected to submit the resolution of the case to file appropriate charges in court. Mai Bermudez, UNTV News and Rescue, Manila.
The Department of Foreign Affairs hits back at Iceland and other countries that are criticizing the Philippines' human rights record. Malacañang, meanwhile, believes there is no need for the UN Human Rights Council to call on the Philippine government to address the killings associated with the campaign against illegal drugs. Rosalie Cos tells us why.
Foreign Affairs Secretary Alan Peter Cayetano chides Iceland and other countries that called on President Rodrigo Duterte to put an end to killings associated with his administration's campaign against illegal drugs. Last week, state members of the United Nations Human Rights Council urged the Philippine government to address the killings under its war against drugs and to cooperate with the international community in probing its human rights situation without any limitations. It can be noted that Duterte previously banned UN Special Rapporteur Agnes Callamard from visiting the Philippines to conduct investigations, accusing her of being biased.
We urge the government of the Philippines to take all necessary measures to bring killings associated with the campaign against illegal drugs to an end and cooperate with the international community to investigate all related deaths and uphold perpetrators accountable.
Cayetano says in a statement that Iceland and other nations seem not interested in actually seeing the truth for themselves by taking up the Philippines' offer to visit the country, but would rather rely on misinformation being fed by parties that are using the issue as a political weapon. In a separate statement, the Malacañang also says the Philippine government is already probing the drug-related killings. According to presidential spokesperson Harry Roque, the government is also taking stock of all slain alleged drug personalities to determine whether this happened during legitimate drug operations. Roque adds there's no need for foreign countries to make such call because the government is already addressing the issue. Rosalie Cos, UNTV News and Rescue, Philippines.
Bureau of Corrections Director General Ronald Bato de la Rosa says there has been a decline in the drug problem inside the new Bilibid prison. Here's why from Leia Ilagan.
Bucor Director General Undersecretary Ronald Bato de la Rosa claims credit for decreasing problem in illegal drugs inside the new Bilibid prisons. He says it is because of the tighter physical inspections he implements on visitors, including women.
Critical ako dyan sa mga dalaw dahil yan ngayon ang gumagawa ng diskarte. Hindi naman courier, kundi lahat ng instruction since wala na silang signal sa loob, wala na silang cellphone na magagamit.
Bato says during the last inspection, Bucor personnel confiscated fewer illegal drugs, cell phones and other contrabands inside the National Penitentiary. He explains stricter inspections result into a 20% decline in the problem of illegal drug inside the Bilibid. The Bucor chief notes he is also implementing stricter rules at night, like turning off lights and ordering prisoners to go to sleep by 10 in the evening.
Hindi ko pwede sabihin sa iyo na hinahampas ko ng baton. Hindi ba pwede yun? Hindi ko sabihin sa iyo na gano'n.
The Bucor chief also says some prisoners' modus operandi of pretending to be mentally ill so they could transfer to other cell does not work on him. Leia Ilagan, UNTV, News and Rescue, Krame.
The Forum for Family Planning and Development launches the task force against sexual harassment at school campuses. Kathy Maglalang tells us why.
An organization launches today a task force which seeks to prevent sexual harassment and to protect women at school. It is called Student Action for Eliminating Sexual Harassment in Campus or SAFE.
Kailangan natin ng polisiya that would prevent men from catcalling women or in general would prevent harassment in our streets. Modesty is about revealing our dignity. Hindi nasusukat ng damit ang dignidad ng isang tao.
Chilaigo Valido, the Director for Programs and Advocacy of Forum for Family Planning and Development, cites as an example the University of the Philippines in Diliman, Quezon City. Citing a study, Valido notes 8 out of 10 UP students feel unsafe inside the campus.
May tinatawag tayo na parang safety audit kung saan yung mga estudyante, naglakad sila different hours of the day. Tapos nagno-note sila ng mga observations nila. Madilim, may pakiramdam ba sila na natakot sila. So, yung kinalap nila na impormasyon na yun, lumalabas na ganun yung pakiramdam ng mga estudyante sa UP Diliman.
The said organization is composed of 11 universities and groups. They will go to different universities to spread sexual harassment awareness among women. The director calls on women experiencing sexual harassment to immediately report the incident to authorities. Meanwhile, for the first time, different universities joined together to fight against violence among women dubbed Walk Free from Fear. The said fashion show showcases role-playing of harassment experienced by women in the streets. Kathy Maglalang, UNTV News and Rescue, Manila.
The Office of the Ombudsman indicts former Transport Secretary Joseph Emilio Abaya and 16 others over the controversial 4.2 billion peso MRT maintenance deal. In a statement released Monday, Ombudsman Conchita Carpio Morales found probable cause to charge Abaya in his capacity as DOTC Secretary for violation of Section 3E of the Anti-Graft and Corrupt Practices Act over the anomalous MRT maintenance contract. The Ombudsman cited the Commission on Audit's Consolidated Annual Audit Report for 2016, which stated that DOTR failed to provide the riding public with a safe and comfortable transport because it allowed an ineligible and unqualified entity, Busan JV Buri, to undertake the implementation of the project. Reacting to the findings of the Ombudsman, Abaya's spokesperson Attorney Erica Gonzalez, in a statement called the decision unfortunate after Abaya laid out his defense against what she calls an unsubstantiated complaint. The Judicial and Bar Council releases a short list of nominees for Supreme Court Justice who will be President Duterte's fifth appointee to the High Court. Making it on the short list are Supreme Court Administrator Midas Marquez Jr., Court of Appeals Associate Justices Apolinario Bruselas Jr., Rosmarie Carangdang, Ramon Garcia, Ramon Hernando, Amy Lasano Javier, Jose C. Reyes, and former Law Dean Cesar Villanueva. One of the said candidates will take the seat of Associate Justice Presbitero Velasco Jr., who is set to retire in August. The application process also opens for the next SC Chief Justice. The Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas warns the public of a fake news on social media claiming the existence of a 10,000 peso banknote. On its official Facebook page, the BSP said it has not produced and has not issued a 10,000 peso NGC banknote and that it only has 6 denominations in its new generation currency banknote series currently in circulation. The BSP calls on the public to report to police or to the National Bureau of Investigation should they possess one to identify the person behind its production.
And for the UNTV Cup off-season update, Senate claims 4th spot to move on to the playoffs while Malacañang's ace player, Special Assistant to the President Christopher Bongo, is named the best player of the game for the second time. Here's why from Bernard Dadis.
Senator San Angara lifts Senate Sentinels to reach the top 4 spot in the playoffs after ending DOJ Justice Boosters campaign 76-72 in the UNTV Cup off-season executive face-off triple header on Sunday. Angara bucketed 22 points, 6 rebounds, and 2 steals, making him the best player of the heart-stopping game. Senate's other ace player, Senator Joel Villanueva, was only able to contribute 10 points because of his shoulder and right leg injuries.
Sobrang halaga kasi do or die to eh. Pag natalo, laglag na kami. We're done. If we lose again, we're done. So, sa good thing, nag-respond yung mga players. Nagpapasalamat naman ako sa Diyos, sa teammates ko na everyone gave an extra effort.
Oh, nice spin!
Judiciary Magis, on the other hand, is now sharing the top second spot with the Ombudsman Graft Monsters after defeating GSIS Thunder Furies 105-50. Judge Wendell Loiterer led the Magis by delivering 30 points and 5 rebounds. Judiciary considers this as an important win and even eyeing to conquer its next matches against Ombudsman and Senate to get a twice-to-beat advantage in the playoffs.
Mahalaga kasi kailangan namin maging top 2 eh. Kasi yung PNP, top 1 na yun.
Now, the hands of Apigo, binigay kay Secretary Go. 3 on the way! And breaks!
Special Assistant to the President, Christopher Bongo, meanwhile, leads Malacañang-PSC Camao in claiming its second straight win by routing reigning champion AFB Cavaliers in yesterday's main game, 87-69. Go was on the roll with his explosive 7 3-point shots, 5 rebounds, and 1 steal, finishing the game with a total of 47 points to claim the best player of the game title for the second time. Last week, Go bucketed 44 points, single-handedly clobbering GSIS Thunder Furies. But Go admits it's not yet time to celebrate as they are yet to surpass the frontlining elimination precipice.
Though our chances are very slim right now, nasa middle kami ng standings, still we will give our best shot in the next 2 games po para sa team.
Bernard Dadis, UNTV News and Rescue, Philippines.
Up next on Y News.
To complete the most significant news for this day, Y News continues. Here are the top stories. The Department of Agriculture imposes on Monday the suggested retail prices for rice and other agricultural products in local markets in Metro Manila. These include prices for regular milled rice, fish like tilapia, milkfish, and galunggong, as well as garlic and onions. Agriculture Secretary Manny Piñol says retailers may opt to lower or hike prices, but it should not go beyond the 10% ceiling of prevailing SRP. DA will also enlist the help of the Department of Trade and Industry and the Interior and local government in monitoring the prices of the said products, warning violators of facing imprisonment and fines.
Yung SRP, yan yung benchmark mo. Pwede kang bumaba, hindi ka pwedeng tumaas ng more than 10%. Kasi pag tumaas ka ng more than 10% over the SRP, prevailing SRP, you could be charged with profiteering. Ibig sabihin, nagsasamantala ka.
Meanwhile, the National Bureau of Investigation, or NBI, arrests 3 employees of the Bureau of Internal Revenue Regional Investigation Division in Makati over extortion complaints. The 3, identified as Arturo Buñol, Gary Anastasio, and Edgardo Javier, and designated as BIR Special Investigators, were nabbed at an entrapment operation in Green Hills, San Juan on June 21st. The case stems from a report of a Chinese restaurant owner from whom the 3 were allegedly demanding to pay 1.2 million pesos in supposed tax liability. The subjects allegedly asked the businessmen to pay only 50% of the total amount, offering to place 75,000 pesos in the tax declaration, and the remaining balance will serve as bribe. The suspects are now facing graft and bribery complaints. Authorities, meanwhile, are advising the public to immediately report to them if they encounter any similar cases.
Bago mo utuso kasi ito, yung RID don't go directly to the clients. Tapos tingin namin mga papel. So talagang nananakot lang mga ganon, scare tactic.
In other news, oil companies are expected to implement a big-time rollback this week due to increased supply from oil exporting companies. Industry players estimate prices of gasoline will go down by over 1 peso per liter, 90 centavos for diesel, and almost 1 peso for kerosene. Last Friday, member countries of the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, or OPEC, agreed to increase their daily oil production to 22 million barrels per day worldwide to balance the market.
The group is concerned on the overall rather than individually, and I think this is a quite achievement. You don't see this usually in organizations. Everyone is looking at his own interest. I think the fact that collectively this group have reached to this conclusion is a testimony that OPEC is caring about the market stability.
President Rodrigo Duterte takes another swipe at the Catholic Church by criticizing one of its doctrines. Speaking at the National Information on Communication Technology Summit in Davao City last Friday, the president particularly questioned the Catholics' teaching on original sin.
Ikaw ay maniwala ka ng nasabi ng Katoliko. So tayo ngayon, all of us are born with an original sin. Ang original sin, sin, ano man yan? Was it the first kiss? O what was the sin? Bakit original? Nasa womb ka pa, may kasalanan ka na.
Based on Catholic theology, infants are baptized to free them from the original sin where they were born with. But according to international televangelist Brother Eli Soriano, this doctrine is not biblical and just invented by the Catholic priests.
Ang kauna-unahang kasalanan ginawa ng tao, yung kanyang pakinig, inalis niya sa Diyos, nakinig siya sa iba. Dapat kasi sa Diyos tayo makinig eh. Hindi kahit kanginong tao, kahit sa asawa mo, pag mali eh, huwag kang makikinig. Tanong ko sa iyo kapatid, pag ikaw ba bagong panganak, may original sin ka na? Unang-una nga, wala. Unang-una nga, pagkapanganak mo, wala ka namang asawa. Paano kang makakapakinig sa tinig ng asawa mo para magawa mo original sin? Yung original sin, invento yan.
Meanwhile, Malacañang appeals to the Catholic Church to investigate and ask for forgiveness on the abuses of some priests against male minors.
Panahon na po siguro na i-address natin itong issue na pagmumolestya ng mga batang lalaki sa simbahang Katolika. Siguro po kinailangan ng isang biktima ay maging presidente para ito po ay maisa publiko, mapag-usapan at magkaroon naman ng solusyon. Hinihingi po natin siguro na para hindi na maulit yung ganitong sentimiento laban sa simbahang Katolika, magkaroon na po ng investigasyon, magkaroon na po ng pag-aamin kung talagang nangyari itong mga bagay nito, magkaroon ng transparency at magkaroon ng hakbang para maiwasan na po itong pagmumulestya sa mga batang kalalakihan.
Meanwhile, Senator Bam Aquino files a resolution seeking to investigate the controversial death of detainee Genesis Tisoy Argoncillo while in police custody. The House Makabayan bloc also plans to file their own resolution this week. The lawmakers are seeking explanation from the Philippine National Police on its basis in arresting Argoncillo, who was just then allegedly buying cell phone load from a store. They also want to hold an inquiry into PNP's arrest of street loiterers allegedly violating ordinances.
Merong mga violations of rights na ginawa. Basic rights po, right to remain silent, right to counsel.
Matagal na itong tinanggal, 2012 pa lang.
PNP Chief Oscar Albayalde meanwhile prohibits his men from using the term tambay when rounding up violators of local ordinances, ordering police commanders to prevent human rights violations during operation.
Closely coordinate with the local government officials, or particularly sa mga barangay officials, no? Because they should be the ones taking the lead in this campaign against violators of local ordinances.
The Department of Foreign Affairs, or DFA, hits back at Iceland and other countries that are criticizing the Philippines' human rights record. In a statement, Foreign Affairs Secretary Alan Peter Cayetano said that other nations seem not interested in actually seeing the truth for themselves by taking up their offer to visit the Philippines, but would rather rely on misinformation being fed by parties that are using the issue as a political weapon. Last week, state members of the United Nations Human Rights Council urged the Philippine government to address the killings under its war against drugs and to cooperate with the international community in probing its human rights situation without any limitations. But according to Malacañang, there is no need for such pronouncement because the government is already addressing the issue. And for the news abroad, here's Amiel Pascual from Zhubei, Taiwan. Amiel, good evening.
Thank you, William. Turkey's main opposition party attacks the state-run media on Sunday for its coverage of parliamentary and presidential elections, saying it was attempting to manipulate the public's perception of the polls. Support for President Tayyip Erdogan would be below the majority required to win the race in the first round. Bülent Özkan, the spokesman for Republican People's Party or CHP, told the news conference in Ankara. Preliminary results from state-run news agency Anadolu showed Erdogan had a 55.08% of the vote, with 70.5% of the ballots counted in presidential election. Muharrem Ince, the main opposition's presidential candidate, stood at 29.4% nationwide, according to media reports. If no candidate wins more than 50% in Sunday's vote, a second runoff will be held on July 8. President Donald Trump wants people who enter the United States illegally be sent back to where they came from immediately without any judicial process. U.S. immigration law provides certain rights for undocumented immigrants arrested by Immigration and Customs Enforcement in most cases. They are allowed in a full hearing before an immigration judge before being deported. Meanwhile, protesters continue to voice their opposition in Texas Sunday morning to the Trump administration immigration policies. While in New York, the U.S. Senate's top Democrat Chuck Schumer calls for a White House reunification czar who would coordinate the eventual reunification of families that the patchwork of immigration and law enforcement agencies currently responsible or undocumented people in the U.S. Meanwhile, women across Saudi Arabia hit the road as they celebrate their new freedom. Maylin Soriano tells us why.
Saudi Arabia officially lifted its driving ban on women on Sunday, allowing them to drive for the first time since the 1950s. Women across the country celebrated the lifting of the long-standing policy, with many getting behind the wheel and driving around the streets. Majdalene Al-Atiq was one of the women in Riyadh who lawfully exercised the newfound freedom. In the first minute of Sunday, she made a trip across Riyadh to visit her father and aunt.
It feels weird. I'm so happy. There's no words can explain what I'm feeling right now. I'm just too proud to be doing this right now.
Majdalene's aunt Fawzia Al-Bakr and her mother were among 47 women who on the 6th of November in 1990 drove through the streets of the Saudi capital to protest the ban on women driving. Bakr lost her job, received death threats, and had to change homes.
It's so natural for her to drive and to get the insurance and everything, where it was extremely difficult for us in 1990. So I'm thrilled. I am so happy that our society and our leaders reach this point where the driving, because it just makes you feel so natural. We're just like any other women around the world.
Prince Al-Walid bin Talal, renowned businessman and a member of the Saudi royal family, lauded it as one of the greatest decisions in the country's history as he released a video of his daughter driving shortly after midnight on Sunday. The lifting of the driving ban on women in Saudi Arabia means not only freedom and openness for Saudi women, but also opportunity for many businesses. Themed events on women driving have also been held in major cities across the country, including a recent exhibition held by the Saudi Telecom Company, which was dedicated to teach women how to drive. Saudi King Salman bin Abdulaziz Al Saud declared the lift of the ban on female driving in September last year. In line with the decree, Saudi transport authorities started to issue driving licenses to women on June 4. Maylin Soriano, UNTV News and Rescue, Middle East.
Those are the news from other parts of the globe. Back to you, William.
Thank you very much, Amiel Pascual, live from Zhubei City, Taiwan. And those are the reasons behind the news, June 25, 2018. On behalf of Darlene Basingan and Angelo Castro III, I'm William Thio. Because we need to know, we will always ask why. Good evening.
Sa mga giliw naming kababayan, kayo po ay malugod naming inaanyayahang dumalo sa aming gaganaping ang Dating Daan Worldwide Bible Exposition sa ika-29 ng Hunyo, araw ng Biyernes sa ganap na ika-6:30 ng gabi sa lahat ng ang Dating Daan Coordinating Center sa buong Metro Manila, Luzon, Visayas at Mindanao at sa iba't ibang panig ng mundo.